let's make a beaded air car diffuser. The materials you're going to need today are a lint roller or masking tape. The air diffuser fills with your favorite fragrance, a pair of pliers, 2 mm nylon cord string cut to 21.5 to 22 inches long, a blunt needle, the clasps that we're going to use to be able to then close the beaded car diffuser, your 2.5-inch ring, a focal, 4 16 mm beads, and 2 lentils, along with 2 mini spacers, and I get those from the Dollar Tree. So now we're going to get our nylon string, and we're going to feed it through the top part only of the car diffuser. That does make it a little bit easier to handle if you're just working with the cap versus the entire bottle. And we're going to, along the entire process, try to keep it in the middle so that we don't waste too much string. We cut it a little bit over ideal. You want it to be at about 20 inches when all is said and done. So that's why we cut it a little bit longer. And I always clean the beads before I start assembling the project, just because of any possible pet hair if you have pets, or just clothing, lint, or just dust. So I clean all of it before I start assembling it, and then after it's assembled, I clean it again with an alcohol wipe. And again, just measuring to make sure that it's in the middle. I'm going to get my blunt needle, and I'm going to thread both cords or both sides of the cord to the needle, and then I'm going to be placing my first 16 mm beads. Now, for this particular car diffuser, I'm using 4 16 mm beads, but that also depends on your style. I'm doing this for a customer, so this is what she preferred design-wise. But you may be changing the size of the bead or the style of the bead based on your preference or your customer's preference if you're making it for a customer. So with now being able to bead the first 2 beads, then I'm going to now feed in, and again, trying to keep it in the middle. We're going to now thread the 2.5-inch round, and once I pass it through, I'm going to move it a little bit to one side to make it a little bit easier to feed the next bead. Now, the next bead, it's not really silicone, and silicone is preferred to do the car diffuser because it's a 2 mm nylon string cord, so it's a little bit thicker than if you're using 1.5. So it is a little bit easier because these are not silicone, which are not really meant to expand. This material is a little bit more like on the clay side. I find it a little bit easier to feed one at a time. So that's what I'm doing here. And the end was a little bit frayed of my string. So that's where I grab my lighter. And I do, as I prep for my string, I always cut a lot in advance, and I do pass the lighter just to make sure it's a little bit easier to handle and the ends are not frayed. So as you cut batches, or if you cut as you go, it is best to use that lighter in order for the ends not to be frayed. So now that I've passed the one side, I'm going to do the exact same thing and now pass it to the other side. So these are the only spacers that I need to do this process with. Usually I just exclusively stay to silicone, but because of the focal bead that the customer chose, that size, I didn't have anything that it was going to be symmetrical on the top side and the bottom side. So these beads did help. So if you have any beads that are not maybe silicone but have a bigger opening that can not only fit the string, but also if you're working with a loop turn or a needle that it can pass through the needle, you could definitely use those. So you don't have to necessarily stick to silicone, but silicone definitely works better on these types of projects. But I have worked with some metal spacers that have bigger openings, that also you don't even need to use a blunt needle because the opening is so big. You could just feed it through the string directly. So now that I've placed the lentil, I'm gonna be now placing the focal next, and that's where working with the design prior saves you some time in the long run. So I typically just set it up either on a tray or just one side of the string so the customer can see how the layout of the bead is going to be, the order of the beads. But you can also just design as you go. The worst thing that you can do is just, take it off the string and then restring it. So it is forgiving in you being able to work the design as you go. But again, because this was a customer order, this is the order that we're going to be working with. So now that I've done the focal bead and the other lentil, it's time to once again just feed one at a time for that mini spacer. So the majority of the materials that I use, with the exception of the beads, I do get from Amazon. So I am going to be creating very shortly an Amazon storefront so that you are able to get the materials that you would need to make this and other projects that I'll be making in the future on this channel. So as we continue to work on the Car Diffuser, we're going to mimic what we did before in feeding through. So as you can see, the other ones I just pull a little bit harder, but when it comes to this mini spacer, I'm definitely very careful so that I'm able to feed it through and be able to successfully apply it to the string. So now we're going to pass it through the last part of the 2.5 round. And after we do that, we'll be able to then feed the other two 16 mm beads. Now, one thing that is important is for you to feel comfortable in the length of the string that you're using. So I did go and measure it out to make sure that about 10 inches was going to be a good size for it to hang from the rear view mirror. That's really important because you don't obviously want it obstructing or hitting anything. So making sure that you're cutting it and once you've got the measurement for one, that's it. Like you could then bulk cut string like I always do. I do make these directly at market. Here I'm going a little bit slower to make sure that you're able to see all the steps. But if you do craft shows or markets, these have been very popular for me because I do offer a pen bar. I call it a bead bar, where customers are able to make pens, pencils, but they're also able to design a car diffuser, and it takes me about 5 minutes once. The hardest part is really selecting the design and the fragrance. After they've gone through that, customer goes shopping, and when they're back, their car diffuser is ready for them. So here we're getting to the end. So after I fed the last two beads, I did cut the string just a little bit, and then once again I applied some heat to it just so that the ends won't be frayed, and now I'm feeding it through for the clasp. I do like to make the knot really close to the end again so we can stay within that 20 length, or 10 really when it all is said and done, 10 inches long. And and if you don't get the knot, or double knot, because usually I double knot it all the way towards the end, it's okay. You're able to just unknot that section and re-knot it. And I had to do that here because I didn't get the knot exactly where I wanted it to be. So you're able to redo that part. And then I do give it a good pull, because I want to make sure that that is not going to go anywhere. You want to make sure that it is sturdy, and then close it and make sure that it is even. And it has been, because we've been working on making it even. And at that final cut, I made sure that it was even. So now I'm going to be applying the fragrance. And now we have made our beaded car diffuser. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on how to make this beaded air diffuser. You can also order a custom one at craftybyroxy.com.